Okay, guys, I'm gonna share this link out real quick and pop my chat open. Let's see. I did a tutorial or video on this earlier, and it really wasn't like short, sweet, and concise. And I'd really like to just kind of get straight to the point on this, and kind of clean up some of the overall bullet points, direction, etc. I do have my chat window open, but I'm gonna try to stay on point so that this is easily followable by pretty much anyone that uses this system. So Waldock Studios has made a tool set called MHuman Character Based Toolset, and a lot of people are picking that up. I'm thrilled about that. Like, thank you guys so much for the support. And it's a pack that can be added to pretty much any project, and which leads to the situation today where people have purchased the base character tool to get started with metahuman data really quickly and get it into a playable character class. But then they, a lot of the people on my Discord are like, how do I take that class and migrate it into like a system that I've already been working on within a game? Like, so for an example, the RPG system that's on the marketplace right now that comes with its own character class and inventory system, etc., etc. So we're just going to dive in right there. So I'll go to that inventory map, and we'll just hit play, and you can see this guy, right? So he's third person character mesh, with an inventory skeletal mesh system laid over the top of him, and we'll dive off into what he is. When you hit play, you can see the class that comes up for your playable character, right? And inventory game mode, inventory player character is what it is, and there's the controller, right? So if we go to the blueprints here and we take a look at him, we'll see that he is a child class of the equipment character, and he doesn't really have a lot of logic inside of him himself. Mainly it's just there for widget handling, the controller, and it follows the standard child class hierarchy, child parent class hierarchy. So we'll dive off into the parent class. I'll just hit that browse button there, and you can see these components set up here, and you'll see underneath inventory, equipment, you'll see head mesh, shoulder mesh. All right, so the functions for these are basically saying, look, when the feet mesh rep, go set the mesh that's here to match. In my previous video, I renamed these because they were named feet and they were named legs, and my metahuman base has the same naming convention, so I just renamed them when I went over a reassigning the metahuman base to a child of the equipment character. But what I really wanted to touch base on here and kind of hammer on points is, at this point, you have to look at these two systems and you have to decide what to do, right? So we have a workable equipment character class. We have the metahuman base character, which we can load up the map there, and I'll hit play, and you guys can see that it's fully functioning and working as it should, just by importing that metahuman data and setting it on the child actor component here. And it's going to be running a construction that goes and looks at the component class index, and it's just matching the index. So index 1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 lines up with Christopher's exported data, and that's how basically the constructor works. It looks at the actor here, and it says, okay, index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And it lines those up and pulls them in and just sets them on in the construction script, because it's the same index. So for each, go set the mesh, go set the material, and we're good to go. So here, what you would want to do is you would want to look at this system that's pre-implemented for you. And this is where you have to kind of get into intermediate and advanced understanding of what Unreal Engine is, and how to modify or migrate or merge code, components, etc. together. And you also got to have an understanding of how that's going to play out into your game design later on, from both a design and coding standpoint, but also from a technical artist standpoint. So the first thing that you'll see here, which this is a horrible example, but it is exactly the thing that people are jumping into my Discord and asking me about, right? Metahumans are a little different than what everyone's used to working with, because most systems in Unreal, they use this type of system that the inventory equipment system has, where your parent mesh is a complete mesh, right? So you might have some like character customizer or other systems where it's closer to what MetaHumans is, and I'll show that here in a second. But for this system, your mesh is whole, and then you're layering on these components. So you're layering on boots, you're layering on rings, you're layering on top of that mesh. For MetaHumans, and for like character customizer and some other systems, the body is just a part, like it's just a piece of that character. And then as you add in data, you're adding in the torso, the pants, without those pieces, it's just, there's nothing. There's no underlying complete whole body that you're just layering these parts on top of. And some clothing systems work this way, where it hides the underlying mesh data, so you render less. It's a performance optimization thing. But this can also, speaking with your resources on your team, this can affect things on the tech art design side of things. This can affect how you're going to code this, or merge these two systems together moving forward. So just keep in mind, this is a really bad example of two systems that are like, the skeletal hierarchy and the structure itself is completely different from one another. So this is like one of the worst case scenarios of trying to say, I'm going to take metahuman data and that skeletal system or whatever, and then get it over to this inventory player system that's available in the marketplace. Now, it can be done multiple ways, and I spoke on one of those earlier. You can child class your human character BP to the inventory equipment character. That's going to be making sure that your child components aren't the same name, and that the logic does not interfere with one another once you make that child assignment. And that was the reason why initially I renamed this to leg equipment, feet equipment, so that whenever that happened, it didn't break that. What it is going to do is it's going to break the construction script on this that's pulling the child data in from the metahuman child actor, because it's relying on index, right? So for each get component by class skeletal mesh component, it's going to count the index, and then it's going to try to apply the mhuman child actor data to that, and now these indexes will no longer align. So this is going to have to be rewritten to either get the component name before getting skeletal mesh data and making sure the component, the object names match for between the two, which is going to break the mesh, because mesh isn't named mesh in Christopher, it's named body. So keep that in mind. You'll have to work around that issue. But basically, you'll have to rewrite the construction script once you child class this. The other thing that you can do is you can duplicate this equipment, the inventory player child, which is a child of the equipment character. So you can duplicate this And then you can look at the interface calls that are happening between the player controller and the widgets on the inventory player character, and make sure that you re-implement that on your duplicate class that you create, and make this class basically a duplicate of this, and then one by one replace the mesh references that are initially here, right? So I can duplicate inventory player character, and I can set this mesh to the Christopher body mesh, and then I can copy these groom components, torso, legs, and feet over into that class and set the appropriate animation blueprint, right? So that is another option that I have. And then for the parent character that's going to be handling the overlaying of the armor and stuff, that should still overlay on top of the parent class. But you got to keep in mind, all of those components are skeletal components, right? So if we go into inventory equipment and we look at these are all skeletal mesh components. They're going to have to be retargeted. Whatever you create for your armor system is going to have to be retargeted to the base, metahuman skeleton, right? So I can take you through that process. It's pretty straightforward. But basically you find out what the skeleton is for the body, which we know it's here. Hover over it, it tells you what location it's at. It should already be set up to humanoid. And then you, inside of your inventory system animations, and we can use this as an example, this third person dance, right? We need to go to its skeleton and make sure it's set up to a humanoid as well, which it won't be by default. And then browse back out to it, right click and retarget, duplicate, and pick your metahuman base skeleton, and then decide where you want to put it, right? So we can just go metahumans, demo animations, we'll just stick it in there, and then hit retarget. And that's going to retarget that skeleton to your metahuman base. But this is going to have to be done, not just for a dance. That's just an example. But this is going to have to be done for each one of your skeletal mesh armored pieces that you're attaching to and copying the pose from the parent, right? So that's the complexity of looking at, how do I take a current class system that's created for me to build out a character from metahuman data really fast and implement it into a system that's already on sale on the marketplace that has all of this other functionality built behind it. You're going to have to gain a fundamental understanding of whatever that system is. You're going to have to gain a fundamental understanding of the skeletal system that's, the character behind that system. And then you're going to have to understand from a technical artist standpoint, like see how his hat's kind of bleeding into his body here. From a technical artist standpoint, you're going to have to understand how all these inventory pieces are going to fit on to whatever skeletal character system you're using, whether that be character customizer that's on the marketplace, whether that be the metahuman base class that I'm giving to you, pulling over to metahuman data. That's where you're going to have to have that intermediate to advanced level engine understanding to say what is my best path forward here. How can I make a system to make this easier for me? You can take the class I've done for you, and you can rechild it and modify the construction script to fix any issues that pop up on the migration, on the integration into that system. Or you can study the which is here, right? The construction script is set up here. Or you can, if you're saying, I'm only going to use a male, and it would probably make more sense for me to just copy out these components, copy and paste them and go through each of them and set them up on my own class. If you feel like that would be a better course of action for you because you're not going to change between male or female, you're not going to worry about all this other stuff, you're not going to change between different metahuman types, because honestly that's what my class allows you to do, is export multiple metahumans. You can change between them, right? So if you just style one metahuman male and you're like, this is my character and I just want to armor him up for my game experience, it probably wouldn't make sense to hang on to this base class. You would just copy out what you like, copy out the components that you need that are set once the component sets them, or copy out the components from the data that you export and go through and set up your own character class for that. My tool just kind of does that for you. It retargets animations. It makes sure that whenever you do have multiple metahumans exported, you can change that data on the fly, gives you a workable class system that you can walk around in or whatever. But when it comes to integrating into another game system, you have to speak with your resources, speak with your technical artists, speak with the people that are designing your armor system, speak with your animators, and then you have to sit down and decide what is the best course forward for me to be able to use a system like this, inventory management system, or equipment character system. What is the best course of action? How do I move forward with this? Do I bake the metahuman character out into a single mesh like this so he's always looks the same? Do I remove clothing from him? Do I work with my modeler to where it is a metahuman face, but he's on, basically a base naked human body that you can layer clothes on top of? Like, that's where all of these decisions are going to have to take place. And whatever you decide at this point to move forward is going to kind of dictate the workflow of that system for your game moving forward, right? So for me, to answer that question for the majority of you guys, for me, with metahumans in the state that it's in, I would study this equipment character and see what he's doing here for most of these things, and I would take this and recode it and rework it around the way that metahumans work, in the sense that it shows your head, it shows your torso, it shows your legs, it shows your feet independently. I would keep the thing like the belt and the ring and all that stuff. That stuff's nice. But I would work with my technical artists or animators, and I would say, hey, can you create me armor pieces that work the same way that the shoes and the legs and the torso and everything work within the metahuman data set? And then I would build this child class, the equipment character class. I would rework the parent to work with that skeletal system and move it away from the third person default UE4 skeletal system and skeletal mesh data. Like, that's the way that I would kind of go for doing it if this was me. Hope that kind of clarifies some things and kind of gets right to the point of answering some of the questions that you guys have brought up in the Discord channel. If you want to see, if there's any piece of this explanation that you want me to kind of break down and actually go through that process for you, instead of just kind of giving a generalized overview and talking on those points, just feel free to reach out to me and be like, can you go over a little bit more in depth on retargeting animations? Can you go over a little bit more on how to go about restructuring, a parent class for a specific system that maybe you're working with? I know I just kind of picked one and kind of talked on it, but ultimately this is what game dev is, right? There's a lot of work. Either you build your own system, or you're learning how to stitch systems together, where you've created something that does something, a tool set that gets to a particular place really quickly, and someone else has created 50%, 60% of a system on the back end that handles things like inventory or whatever. and you're trying to figure out a way for these two systems to coexist with each other and play nice together, right? So that's ultimately what we're here for, that, you know, overcoming those hurdles and integrating something together to make something complete, right? But hope that kind of jumps right to it, gives you a really good outline on what this is and some of the complexities that can come up from taking two different systems or a complete gameplay system on the back end and trying to just pull a character class over into it that, you know, the fundamental workings of the skeletal system are completely drastically different from each other. It's not going to be straightforward, and you're going to have to be an intermediate to advanced level to be able to rework some of these functions, set up these child components, set up skeletal mesh components, rework animations and animation blueprints, you know, design out armor pieces. All of that stuff is going to come into play here. Anyway, have a good one. Have a happy Thanksgiving if you guys are in the United States. I know that's coming up for you guys shortly. And talk with you guys later. Oh, remember, like, subscribe. Always appreciate it.